Avatar: The Way of Water is a film that gave us a complete emotional tale on togetherness and what we do to protect the ones close to us, but it's an entry in James Cameron's growing universe that promises further stories and character arcs within the expanded world of Pandora. The question now is, what can we expect from Avatar 3, Avatar the Seedbearer, or whatever it ends up being called in just about 2 years' time? In this video, I'm going to be discussing what could happen in Avatar 3 following all the plot details and character progression that we learned of in The Way of Water. This video will contain spoilers from Avatar 2, so if you don't want anything spoiled, then I would recommend watching this video at another time. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding Avatar 2 and Avatar 3, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into what we might see in Avatar 3. So for all the storytelling developments of James Cameron's sequel, Avatar: The Way of Water is only the second film in a planned 5-film universe. The sequels are due to arrive every 2 years, with the third film scheduled to release in December of 2024. Cameron has spoken about the sequels a bit in the last week, saying that Avatar 4 would partially take place on Earth, and that Neytiri would go there and have a perspective somewhat comparable to Jake Sully in the first film, where she'd see that there is some good in humanity. But before we do reach that, we'd have to get through Avatar 3 and what the filmmaker has planned following the emotional ending of Avatar: The Way of Water. The movie ended with the Sullys giving their dead son Netayam a funeral under the water at the Metkayina base, sending him to the bottom of the sea. He became a part of the energy of Eywa and Pandora, and then we follow this moment with Jake and Neytiri spending some time with him in the afterlife, having connected with the underwater Tree of Souls. We do learn within this ending that the surviving Sullys are ready to move away from the Metkayina, with Jake saying to Tonowari that to protect his family, it's better to fight the humans than to run away from them. But Tonowari does say to Jake that he and his family are now Metkayina, so it remains unclear of what Jake, Neytiri, and their children will do next. Will they go back to the forest, will they stay with the Metkayina, or explore more of Pandora and its different tribes? I can see there being a focus on all of this, and I think the urgency of aligning with more Na'vi tribes will stem from the fact that the human forces at Bridgehead will want retaliation from Jake's somewhat victory once again. We do see the walled city of Bridgehead in brief moments of the film, and General Francis Ardmore tells Quaritch that Earth is on the brink of collapse and that they need to make Pandora their new home. So I'm guessing that after Quaritch's failure, the humans would want to hit back with more of their combined forces. After all, Quaritch and his squad were a smaller group tasked with killing Jake Sully to remove that threat against their operation. And with that not working out, that makes me guess that in Avatar 3, we'd see Jake and his family assembling more of the Na'vi from different regions of the planet to end the war at Bridgehead once and for all. Of course, the story over the next film may continue to focus on Jake and Neytiri too, but based on the direction of The Way of Water, it seems like the story is starting to divert more towards the children and making them the key protagonists of this story. Kiri, Loak, and Tuk could be the future film's focus, and one of them could even become the new leader of the people. I know Cameron said that both Jake and Quaritch would be present in all 5 films, but with things like the Eywa afterlife being introduced, where you can literally talk to the dead once connecting to a spirit tree, then for all we know, Cameron might have meant that a dead Jake or Quaritch would appear there. I can definitely see the kids taking over the leadership from their father at some point, and with Jake maybe sacrificing himself to save his family in the future, then this may be moving us towards that. Like I was alluding to, I can see this all building up to a big battle at the walled city Bridgehead, with Jake and the rest of the Na'vi fighting the problem head on, rather than running, just like he made clear at the end of The Way of Water. Moving on, it's now time to discuss what could be going on with Kiri after all the mystery surrounding her origin, alongside not knowing her father and her newly found powers with a deep connection to Eywa. Now, of course, one of the potential leaked titles for Avatar 3 is Avatar the Seedbearer, but based on producer Jon Landau's recent comments, that won't be the official title of the film. Still, if that is one of the working titles based on what does happen in Avatar 3, it does sound like an obvious reference to Kiri's mysterious father. In the final act of The Way of Water, we saw Kiri use her spiritual powers, both in guiding her family out of danger using glowing fish, to manipulating plants in the ocean that would defeat the underwater sky people. The original film didn't really dive into the supernatural all that much, and all we knew was that Eywa had the potential of being something greater in this universe, thanks to the many descriptions from Kiri's mum, Dr. Grace Augustine, in explaining how everything was connected. So the revelations surrounding Kiri and all the mystery that Avatar 2 posed surrounding her origin makes the Na'vi's connection to Eywa even more important as we move into Avatar 3. Spider and Loak did joke about Norm being the father early on in the film, and Norm was there to help Kiri off screen when she had her seizure. But right now, I think it's unlikely that Cameron would take such a weird direction when it comes to Kiri's origin. As explained in the film, Kiri is the daughter of the avatar of Grace Augustine, who is now suspended in a tank where she has been kept alive, but she can't be woken up. I think it's likely that she is either Eywa's daughter or Eywa herself, physically reborn into the world of Pandora. We must remember that Grace connected with Eywa while the Na'vi were trying to save her in the original film, and this might have led to her avatar being able to create new life, explaining why Kiri can sense Eywa's heartbeat, have a close connection with nature, and use powers linked to that connection. So basically, Kiri or Eywa is a kind of Jesus for Pandora with no father, having powerful abilities and connections that would only expand with the later sequels. Maybe down the line, she might be able to bring the dead back through allowing them to be reborn into a new body, similar to how she, as Eywa, was able to be reborn as Kiri. Who knows, we might see something along the lines of Netayam or a soon-to-be-dead Jake Sully brought back in a new body using her spiritual powers. It'll be interesting, and I think if anything, my biggest anticipation lies within what we will find out about Eywa in the future films. And I think Cameron is definitely hiding these reveals and gradually leading us towards them. The last thing I wanted to talk about in relation to where things could go in Avatar 3 is what lies next for Quaritch and his somewhat son Spider. Obviously, in The Way of Water, Spider's character was revealed to be the son of the original Miles Quaritch, and the kid had to stay in Pandora because babies cannot make the trip back to Earth. We learned that he grew up with the Na'vi and was close to Jake Sully's other children, but that he was afraid of Neytiri, who makes it clear that she doesn't feel as much affection towards him because he was Quaritch's son. She eventually held a knife at his throat to save Kiri, but because he spent time with his recommed father throughout the events of the film, it ultimately led to him preventing his father from drowning afterwards. On one side, this could be a sign that Spider might become an ally to his father and help him, because maybe he might realise that Neytiri will never see him as a son, especially after the events of this film and the death of Netayam. Although for that to happen, he would have to go through a major character change, and it would put him on the opposite side to Kiri, who right now we believe has a romantic connection to him. Again, this might be possible with more character development, but I think the more likely option is seeing a redemption arc for his father because of Spider's growing connection to him. The recommed Quaritch is currently dealing with the memories of his human self, and after failing a second time to stop Jake and even being saved by his son, I think this could lead to him being redeemed. Having Quaritch as the straight-up villain bent on revenge for 3 more films is something that I don't think would be all that interesting in the long run of this particular franchise. And with Cameron having a record of taking the villain from the original and flipping their motives in sequels, I'd put money on Quaritch going through something similar now that he's got a son who could pull him around. Just imagine an Avatar 3 where Quaritch reckons with his sins, fights alongside Jake and the other Na'vi against the humans at Bridgehead, and eventually sacrifices himself to save his son. Of course, we'd need to see a lot of character development there too, that moves him from the villain we know to that kind of individual, but his new Na'vi form and reconnection with Spider allows for that kind of change in the long run. But that was my video discussing some of the things that could happen in Avatar 3. We'll have to see what the filmmaker does, but I think all of these introduced elements will be developed in unique ways that we don't expect. Cameron will have to do that from a character and plot perspective in the sequels if he wants to keep the interest by Avatar 4 and 5, so I can definitely see there being some big things that happen in the next film. And as I said before, with the director talking about this eventually heading to Earth in the later films, it suggests that big story developments are on the way. But let me know down below in the comment section what you are personally excited for surrounding what could happen in Avatar 3, and whether you think that this universe can sustain the story and character growth over 3 more films. For lots more videos surrounding Avatar 2 during its release, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.